an ox-like shape in the nebula, Alef. Now let's investigate the symbol for Alef in our star map. In previous chapters, we looked at the Hebrew word for ark, Tebah. At the start of the flood, the constellation letters for Tebah rise up off the horizon, floating on what may be likened unto a blue band of water-like stars. While pondering this puzzle, some intriguing patterns appear. Let's have a look at some of the letters contained within the Tebah or box. We will start with Aleph. Aleph is the first letter in the acrostic scriptures and is considered the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. If we look up Aleph in the lexicons, it has the sense of ox or oxen that have learned to be yoked together for plowing fields. Gesenius lexicon reads, "The name of this letter of the alphabet, which, like those of other letters, is of Phoenician origin and signifies an ox." Hebrew Alef. And it goes on and says, "The name of this letter is derived from its figure in the most ancient alphabet, which represents the rude outlines of the head of an ox, which is still found in the remains of the Phoenician inscriptions." The Brown Driver Briggs lexicon groups Aleph with the verb to learn, as well as tame and 1,000. So under Aleph we have learn, under Aleph we have cattle, under Aluf we have tame, and under Aleph we have 1,000. Ox is different from generic bulls or cows in that an ox has been tamed and has learned to wear a yoke. Oxen are generally trained to follow directions. Once trained, they can plow a straight line. Aleph also has the sense of 1,000. This may generally refer to size, weight, strength, and how they herd together in large numbers. Now, consider this. Instead of us following a line to plow a field, we are now, in a sense, learning to follow an ecliptic line, a line of an ancient alphabet calendar system used to describe the passing of time. The Noah narrative reads, "You shall take with you of every clean animal by sevens, a male and his female, and of the animals that are not clean, 2, a male and his female, also of the birds of the sky by sevens, male and female, to keep offspring alive on the face of the earth." In Deuteronomy 14, there is a list of clean and unclean animals. Remember, Aleph means ox, and Gimel means camel. Deuteronomy 14 reads, "You shall not eat any detestable thing. These are the animals which you may eat: the ox, which is shor in Hebrew, the sheep, the goat, the deer, the gazelle, the roe deer, the wild goat, the mountain goat, the antelope, and the mountain sheep. And you may eat every animal with cloven hooves, having the hoof split into 2 parts, and that chew the cud among the animals. Nevertheless, of those that chew the cud or have cloven hooves, you shall not eat, such as these: the camel, which in Hebrew is Gamal, the hare, the rock hyrax, for they chew the cud, but they do not have cloven hooves. They are unclean for you. Also, the swine is unclean for you, because it has cloven hooves, yet it does not chew the cud. You shall not eat their flesh, nor touch their dead carcasses." Did you happen to notice that the ox and the camel are at the top of each respective list? And for those who didn't catch the hints earlier, the two constellation letters that we are now considering inside the Tebah are Aleph, a learned ox representing clean animals, and Gimel, a camel representing the unclean animals. Isn't the word for ox, shor, different from Alef in Deuteronomy 14? Yes, it is. Just like in English, there are multiple words to describe cows, bulls, calves, and oxen. So too in Hebrew, Alef is describing the same word as shor for ox in Deuteronomy 14. Hebrew has several words to describe the same animal. Those that study the shape of the letters will often demonstrate that the letter resembles the shape of the animal. The shape of the Aleph has resemblance to several clean animals. More important than its shape would be the ah sound that these animals make. This gives us some general clues as to what the Aleph sounded like. Several thousand years later, Masoret scribes were concerned about losing the vowel sounds, so they added markings under the letters which are still in wide use today. Prior to the Masoret markings, the reader would have to interpret the sounds of the symbol as similar to the sound that an ox makes. I was curious what would happen if we ignored the modern star charts based on Babylonian, Greek, and Roman writings. Instead, we use the Hebrew alphabet and the Hebrew narratives to locate constellations and nebula. In other words, attempt to employ writings that predate the modern star catalogs. In the context of this Noah narrative, we are considering the location of a clean animal, the letter Aleph, which has the sense of a trained ox. Can we find a pareidolia shape that resembles an ox? I found Stellarium's default Milky Way.png image to be low quality. I found a higher quality Milky Way and it helped a bit. But the best source was found in this beautiful photo by Brian, which he called the Taurus molecular cloud. We will copy and paste Brian's photo into GIMP and rotate it to match how it appeared in the evening sky. It is easiest to match the rotation to the star clusters Pleiades and Hyades. To my surprise, the dark nebula seemed to outline the shape of an ox. This dark nebula shape might explain why so many nations related this region of space to an ox. I feel it necessary to reiterate the earlier warning. Israel worshipped a golden calf at Mount Sinai. Jeroboam made 2 calves and caused Israel to sin. Egypt had multiple cow idols. Taurus, the bull, passed down to us today. Locating this nebula that resembles an ox makes me both excited and at the same time uncomfortable. But it doesn't end here. Take a very close look at the shape of the dark nebula near the mouth of the ox. Aleph is a symbol representing the sound coming out of the mouth of the ox. So This means Aleph is not about the ox, but rather the sound from the mouth of the ox. Not only the ancient Aleph shape can be identified, but also the modern Ashuri Aleph shape. The Aleph constellation on the ecliptic path is not directly on top of the Aleph that we found in the dark nebula. This too is an important clue. Shapes found in the Milky Way nebula are depicted as constellations along the ecliptic path. Combining previous clues reveals something quite useful. The line on the scrolls represent the ecliptic path. The slant of the letters represent the horizon. These clues lead to an understanding that the horizon was used to reference nebula shapes. Both the ecliptic path and the pareidolia shapes found in the dense nebula band were used together to track the passage of time. This in turn gives the observer multiple reference points for tracking time using the ecliptic line that the sun, moon, and planets follow. In the winter, the alphabet constellations are below the nebula band, and in the summer, the alphabet constellations are above the nebula. Sometimes the shapes are easy to spot, and other times it is difficult. This is all part of deciphering this ancient puzzle. The meanings of the letters are giving hints to what shape may be seen within the vast, dense nebula. So far, I've been able to pick out most, but not all, of the letters. Many of the ecliptic letters matching the nebula shapes can be matched by following the horizon lines. These Paleo Hebrew alphabet penstrokes have much more to tell us. The narrative seems to describe other things to look for in the vicinity of the letter. The narrative reads, "You shall take with you of every clean animal by sevens, a male and his female, also of the birds of the sky by sevens, male and female. As for the 7 clean animals and the 7 birds, these may be referring to the 2 most recognized open star clusters, called by the Greeks Pleiades and Hyades. Both star clusters are in the Aleph Ox constellation. Both clusters are on either side of the ecliptic path. Some refer to them as the Golden Gate of the ecliptic. In -2726, at the time of the flood, the spring equinox is between these 2 star clusters. The birds of the sky, by sevens, may be represented by the smaller cluster above the ecliptic. The clean animals by sevens may be represented in the larger cluster below the ecliptic. Well, I can count more than 7 stars in Pleiades and Hyades clusters. Yes, with software, binoculars, and telescopes, it is easy to come up with more than 7 stars in each cluster. Unfortunately, my eyesight is not the best for viewing the stars in each of these 2 clusters. I am unsure how many stars a person could see in the cluster with good eyesight. Counting sevens, or 7 stars, may have been a convenient number to match the 7 orbs that pass betwixt the 2 clusters of 7. The Sun plus the Moon plus Mercury plus Venus plus Mars plus Jupiter and plus Saturn equals 7 bright orbs visible to the naked eye. The 7 bright orbs passing between clusters of 7 stars on either side of the ecliptic. While looking at Aleph, it feels like we are learning an ancient lost history of the first letter of the alphabet. An ox or clean animal found within the Tebah box, learning how time was tracked in the past using both orbs on the ecliptic path, reference to nebula shape using the horizon. Next, we will look at an unclean letter of the alphabet, Gimel.